The Open Door Baptist podcast features the insightful preaching and teaching of our senior pastor, Jason Murphy. It also comprises of special messages from a number of guest speakers throughout the year. The purpose of this podcast is to be a witness in our community, to encourage others to grow in their relationship with God through the preaching and teaching of His Word, and to serve others in the name of Jesus Christ.
Let me just again thank the church, as Brother Fisher has done already. Thank you for your kindness. I've never been here and not felt welcomed, and so it's kind of normal, but I don't want to take normal blessings for granted. So thank you. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for just your provision. I have great confidence in the things of tomorrow for this local church. And maybe you say, well, you should not be presumptuous. I don't mean to be presumptuous, but when I can identify certain traits and certain things present, then that gives me reason for hope. And you have a pastor that loves God and is just very sincere. Everything he says, he's just very sincere. He just tells you. He doesn't come to the pulpit with pretense. He doesn't feign things or pretend about things. He just tells you. And I like that. And if he doesn't know what to do, he says, well, I don't know what to do about that. But we're praying. Well, I'd much rather have that. I like that. You know, I tell you what, God can always work with authenticity. And in Australia, we say honesty. When we say honesty in Australia, we don't mean you pay your bills. That's a different thing. We mean honesty is in transparency, in truthfulness, and you are what you say. God can always work with that, and does. And I just have great hope for the future of the church here. I believe God's going to continue to bless you. I already think God has done some amazing things. I told Pastor the other day, there's probably multiple reasons why God has, in mercy, seen to bless you. Probably, I think one of them at least, is that you have been a blessing to others. And when you're a blessing to others, it's kind of like God takes on that debt. And you should never expect them to pay you back. That should never be your mindset, that, well, they owe me. Never think anybody owes you anything. Everything you give, loose it unto God, and it's gone. Nobody owes you anything. But you will find on occasions that God will send things back. And I think He's done that here. All right, I really have one main point to make. I don't know, I don't think it'll be long. I don't think it'll be short. I'll just, as long as it takes to get one point across, okay? So it's really one point, but a lead up to one point. And I just ask you just to sort of journey with me a little bit. This was something that really spoke to me. I've never preached on this before, but I have thought about it before. And it just really spoke to my heart. We're going to look at Saul, and we're going to get to something he did. And there are two things Saul did in his life that personally I admire. There are two occasions when I look at the life of Saul, two different things he did. One of them I'll tell you tonight. Two things he did that when I read that, I stop and I pause and I think, well done. Well done. You say you want to be like Saul. I do not want to be like Saul. Are we okay? I do not want to be like Saul. I don't want to model my Christianity on Saul. I don't want to have a walk with God like Saul had. Okay, I'm not saying that tonight. But I'm saying there was two things, and one in particular I want to point out tonight that I just admire him for. And if you would do what he did, God would bless you. You say, well, he lived a bad life. I'm not saying copy his life. I'm just saying when I get to this thing and we see it, if you would just do that and just be like that, then you would have God's blessing on you. So let's just take a little bit of a journey to get there. I want to paint a picture. I only want to paint the same picture the Bible paints. But I'd like you to try to get into seeing this. You know, if this was a movie, I think it'd be a movie I was watching and I'd be very moved at this. It would be kind of a tragedy, but but it would be sad, but kind of all these things. Saul is in a monumental mess. And he's in a mess. Now, I don't know, you might observe that, and that might bring up a sense of glee in your heart. You might think, well, you know, good, you had that coming for all the things that you did. And he did a lot of bad things, and he probably did have it coming. And I think it would be okay to say that this mess was his chickens coming home to roost. It had finally come back. A whole lot of things that he had done. But nonetheless, there's just something in me, and I think probably something in God, that just does not rejoice in the fact when people have great misery, even when they brought it on themselves. And even, frankly, when they brought it on other people. But I just look at that, and, you know, I always remember when I was younger in Australia, Australia was going through this thing. We don't have many churches. Did you say there were 600 churches in Knoxville? We have 150 independent Baptist churches in Australia. Half of those have less than 50 people attending. And I remember a time when I was younger that there was a lot of contention going on in Australia between, this emerging, in Australia, not the New Evangelicals, it was an error step behind that. It was the charismatic movement. And there was this contentious thing going on. And of course, there were figureheads in that movement. And I'll never forget one particular day. We had an American missionary. He kind of was, he came as a missionary, but he just sort of ended up living and dying in Australia. And one time I actually ended up becoming his pastor. But he had a paper. He wrote a paper, kind of a bit like years ago what the Sword of the Lord was. He did this paper that went all around Australia, and we would read it. And it was a paper that contended for the faith. And so it would name things and name errors. And so it would often be dealing with this matter of the errors of the charismatic churches in Australia and abroad. And I remember one day the editor of that paper was there, and it came through on the radio. Back then, you understand, we're a time zone, multiple time zones behind you. And before the cycle of, 24-hour news channels, the news would arrive to us a day after something happened here. And that's just how it was, and we didn't think anything of that. And so I remember on the radio that morning, Australians would get their news by the radio, that the editor of that paper was there, I could hear the radio going, and there were some other believers there, and it was announced on the radio that a head, a name, if I said, I know you would know, a head of a sort of the charismatic ministries, and well known, he was on TV and all of that, that man had sort of had a very public fall. And it was a very public thing, and you probably sort of, got used to that by now, but when that happened, it was a big event. It made the Australian news and the Australian secular news, and so as one of the boys present heard that, he kind of said, yes, kind of like, yeah, that's them. And I was watching the editor of that paper who had contended against error in that movement for some time, and I was watching him, and he didn't go, yeah, he didn't do that. And he didn't even say something like, I told you. He didn't do that. I saw him drop his head, and I was watching because I was just, and he dropped his head, and he said, that's very sad. He said, that will affect a lot of Christian people. And he sort of sauntered off. And that stayed with me. He wasn't gleeful or joyful about that happening because he knew the damage that would do to lots of people. And so, when you see this with Saul and you arrive at this place where he's in a real mess, and you say, yeah, but he persecuted David, he didn't listen to God, he did all this bad stuff, and he slew a village and he killed innocents, and it's all true, but he gets to the place here where now this is just a pitiful scenario. It's pitiful. And if it was you, it'd be pitiful. And what has happened here in verse number 1 is the armies of the Philistines have massed themselves against Israel. And you see that there in verse number 1 and 4. And in fact, when Saul saw the size of that opposing army, he was just stunned and just shocked. And you understand, in this day, when two armies sort of went out to fight, they didn't just go out on the battlefield and fight and somebody was the winner and you got a little ribbon or a trophy and you went home, and somebody was the loser and thought, maybe next time. That's not what happened. The stakes were much higher. When you lost, that could be your kids were killed, your homes were burnt down, everything was taken away. And if you belonged to the royal family, or just about anybody who possibly could lay any kind of succession to the throne, you were definitely slaughtered by the others when you lost. And so the stakes here are really high. This is not a game. And the stakes here are really high for Israel. It isn't just Saul, that one person. Jonathan is going to be involved in this as well. Jonathan's going to pay a price through this as well. The men of Israel are going to pay a price. Hey, there's going to be a lot of grieving families by the time this is done. Yeah. And this is truly sad. And so Saul finds himself in a situation where this army has massed against him. He's the leader. He's the king. He's the one that the little kids are looking to. He's the one that mums at home are saying, come on, Saul will take care of this. We've got a leader. He'll just believe. Mum, where's Dad? He's gone out to fight, but he'll be back. He'll be home. Just Saul will fix this up. But Mum, all the other kids are saying someone heard that Philistine army was bigger than anything they've ever seen before. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Saul will take care of it. Now, when you're Saul, the weight of all that is on you. When you're the leader, the weight of a crisis is on you. Right. And you've got to, everybody's looking to you. What should we do? What will it be okay? What's the call? What do we do? So how do we handle this when we're so outnumbered? What should we do? And Saul is in a real mess here because the Bible tells us in verse number 3, Samuel is dead. He's gone. And Samuel always had a soft spot for Saul. So, because remember, Samuel was involved right from the beginning. Samuel was the one God used to do the original anointing, to go to him under various amazing circumstances they meet. Samuel always had a spot for Saul, so much so that when God removed his presence from Saul and said enough, Samuel mourned over that. And God had to come and say to him, how long is this going to go on, Samuel? And so, when the Bible is saying, you understand, from Saul's perspective, I don't have Samuel now. I mean, he didn't have him for a while, he'd gone, but he's not even there to go to. And he's got a crisis, a mess, a scary scenario. He doesn't know what to do. In verse number 6, God will not talk to him. And folks, that's really, really bad when you're in that situation and you're begging for answers. You've got a crisis. This is really bad. Everybody's looking to you. You don't know what to do. You're shaking yourself from within. You're terrified yourself. But you've got to be the leader. And God knows what you just want direction. What do I do? What do I do? And God will not talk to him. And because God's done with him. And Saul says, okay, did anyone have a dream? Was there a dream? Did God lead anyone to a dream? No one had a dream? Did God speak to anyone through a dream? Okay, no dreams. Okay. The Urim and the Thummim, we can seek God's leading that way. We can try to do it that way. It's not working. It's not working. Have we tried it? Should we try it again? It's not. Okay. So the Philistines are massed against us. Nobody's had a dream. the Urim's not working. We really need to know what to do here, but it's okay. The prophets, call up the prophets. Prophets, is there a word from God? What should we do? Has anyone got a word? A word. Someone got a word, a leading, the prophets, do what you do, prophet thing, and tell us, what should we do? And that's his situation. I mean, he's in a mess. He's in a deep, deep hole, and God has done this. And you don't ever want that to happen. I've prayed this prayer. God, whatever would happen to me, please don't leave me. Do what you would ever want to do to me, and anything you do will be okay. He doeth all things well. And that's fine. But God, please, don't leave me. Don't ever allow myself to delude myself that you're speaking and you're with me, and you're not. Don't ever let me go out thinking you're with me, but you're not. God, please. And that's the situation he finds himself in. It's a mess, and I hope you can sort of see this drama playing out. By the way, the clock's ticking, the enemy's sharpening their sword, both sides are out there. This is coming to a conclusion. And he doesn't know what to do, and he's greatly overwhelmed. God is not responding to him. And so Saul comes up with an idea in verse number 7. Saul says, no dreams, no Urim and Thummim, no prophets. Okay. Go and find me a woman who has a familiar spirit. Go and find me somebody who can by occultish means, by forbidden means, conjure up a presence to tell me what to do. This is absolute desperation. Because the Bible says previously, in verse number 3, Saul, at the end of verse number 3b, that Saul had already purged the land of all the people like that. In other words, he'd already done what he knew was right. That he was right in doing that. God didn't want that around. And he had done that, and now here's what he was doing. In desperation, he was going to go back to something he knew was wrong to try to get some comfort. Are you listening? Yes. In desperation, something he'd already put out of his life and knew was wrong, he was now going to go and try and find it again, seek it out, to just get some comfort. And that's what he's doing. And so he goes and finds, they say, well, actually, we do know where there's one, at Endor. So verse number 8, he disguises himself and just acts like he's just, an ordinary person. He goes in, he tells her what he wants to have. He says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to bring up somebody to speak to me. I need some help. Now, you might be thinking, does this sort of thing happen? Well, look, I noticed this in the West, well, at least in my country. There's a lot of people who will tell you they can do a lot of things, and they take MasterCard, Visa, and American Express as well. And what you need, they will do. And it's a cash making. That's all. It's a scam. But there are people, and clearly there was one here. There are people who, by occultish means, have an ability to visit into some areas that God said is forbidden. This happens in Thailand a lot. It's very common. And they don't take your Visa or your MasterCard, or they just do it. Joe's village, Joe's the Thai man that works with me, my first convert. His village has a woman like this. And they didn't even know that. They didn't even know it's wrong. And they'll just tell you, say, well, he told me just after he got saved, he said, yeah, we have a lady like that in the village. And I said, what does she do? He said, well, and one day he took me up there, he showed me where she lives, and he said, the whole village comes out. We all come out and we all gather around, hundreds of people. We gather around her and she sort of does this thing. And he said, it's like a ghost. The Thais use the same word for ghost and demon. They use the same words, interchangeable. So this ghost comes into her and she tells us all things. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. I said, how long did they? He said, since my mum and dad would carry me there. And he said, sometimes this thing comes into her. And he said, I've seen her run faster than a teenage boy could not catch it. She's 80-something years old. He said, I've seen her run like the wind, almost like she's not touching the ground. And I said, oh. And so, well, he got saved. He just got saved. He was 18. He goes back to his village like he'd done to visit his family. He's too scared to tell his mum and dad he's a Christian. He's just got saved. He goes back to the village. Mum and dad say, oh, you came on an auspicious occasion. We're all going to go to the lady. The whole village is gathering, like we do. And so Joe, he hasn't done his 12 lessons of discipleship. He doesn't know about any of this. He's just saved, and he doesn't know. So they all go, and he just goes in the group like he's always done, and they all gather around, and he's telling me this. And so hundreds of people are gathered around the lady, and she begins to twitch and do her thing, and they're all waiting for her to speak and tell them different things, and she looks up, and out of those hundreds of people, she puts up her hand and her bony little finger, and she points Joe out in the crowd. And he's telling me this. He got back and he didn't know what had happened. He's telling me. He said, so she point me out and she say, what are you doing here? You're not one of us. And he's telling me that. And I said, what happened? He goes, I shock. I don't know what's happening. And my mother and father start saying, yeah, it's Joe. He's one of us. You remember Joe? And the whole village is looking at him like, what does that mean? He's not one of us. And they're saying, yeah, Joe, he's one of us. And she's saying, you're not one of us. See, that thing in her recognized God in him. That's what was going on. Now you say there are people like that. There are people like that. There happens that she's still there. A month ago, Joe rang his dad, asked him quite about grandma who's sick. And his dad said, oh, she's really sick. She's probably going to die soon. And Joe said, take her to the hospital. And the dad said, no, it's okay. We went to the spirit lady and she said, don't do it. It'll be fine. They're still doing it. It's just, it's so incorporated in what they do. It's devilish, it's dark, it's demonic, it's anti-God, it's the spirit of confusion, so Saul goes to one just like that. That's where he is. Something he had expelled that he knew was wrong. He's back there, and so he says, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to call up." He's pretending he's not Saul. I want you to call up someone. I'll tell you who it is, and you bring them up, And so she's like, well, I got to be really careful here because Saul, he's killed all my friends and expelled them all, and I'm risking my life, and he says it'll be okay. And so she does her little thing, and I want you to get a picture here. Like I said, this would be a movie, and she's doing her thing, and then verse number 12, she cries with a loud voice. So get a picture of a scream going through the hut in the night, and suddenly she realizes you're not just nobody. Verse 12, you're Saul, and she got that part right, and he says, it's okay, what'd you see? And she says, well, it's kind of like I see like a God type thing coming up out of the earth, paradise likely, and I could visualize something there. He goes, yeah, go ahead. And the idea is to get Samuel up, and then he says, what'd you see? Verse 14, well, I can see an old man, and he's covered in a mantle, and Saul's like, That'll be him. That'll be him. And so then Saul gets down, and Samuel speaks. Verse number 15. You know, why did you do this thing to me? Why did you call me this way? And Saul says to him, you know, I couldn't get God. I don't know what to do. God has left me. And Samuel then tells him some things going to happen. So is this heading somewhere? It is. Verse 16, Samuel says, well, you know, God has left you and has become thine enemy. I mean, God forbid, folks. It doesn't get a lot worse than that.
Right.
It does not get a lot worse than that.
Right.
And God's going to take the kingdom from you. Verse 17. You didn't listen to God. Verse number 18. You didn't obey him. Verse number 19, to get to the point. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel into the hand of the Philistines. And look at this. Tomorrow, Saul, tomorrow, you and your sons, your boys, you're going to be with me where I am. That would mean death, folks. Tomorrow, you know, you were looking for answers. God wasn't speaking to you. You didn't know what to do. You've gone and done this. Well, I'll tell you, you'll be dead tomorrow. And it won't just be you, it'll be your boys. And the problem with that was this. It was true. And he knew it was true. He knew. When he was already a mess. He was already a mess. Pitiful. Pitiful, the man who knew God and could have walked with God. Pitiful. He knew when he heard that, indeed it will be so. And I want you to see what he does. Verse number 20, Saul fell straightway all along on the earth. He falls down. We'd say this, he collapsed. He's got men there. He collapses. Like, God, he just falls down. The weight of that. Knowing. Yeah, I thank God that if that was going to happen to you, I don't want God to visit me in the night and say, tomorrow you and your boy will be dead. I'd just rather God do how he does it. And now he's got the weight of that. And he collapses down. Look at it, verse number 20. Because of the words of Samuel, and there was no strength in him. He is absolutely, mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. It's all gone. It's just come to this sad, pitiful end. So much so, by the way, that woman takes pity on him. Like I say, this could be a movie, but it's all true. There's all this character stuff being played out here. Right. That woman takes pity on him and says, I mean, she just sees him collapse like that. I'm sure she knows. Mm-hmm. She says, you need to eat. You need to eat. And please, just let me get you some food. You need to eat. It's really awful, this whole, you understand? This is really awful. This is what happens when people leave God. There's no good end, by the way. If you know God, it's worse for you to depart than the people who never knew. It's much worse. Don't ever do it. Don't get old and get upset about something and leave the church and end your days that way. Don't do it. Don't get discouraged by the behavior of the brethren and say, I've had enough, and just kind of go. Don't do it. Don't leave God. Amen. Say, well, I'm not leaving God, I'm just leaving the church. You leave his church, you leave him. I'm not saying you lose your salvation. I'm just saying that's not right. Say, well, I love God, it's just Christians. If you love God, you have to love his children. Don't tell me you love, so, Brother Sehmish, I love you, I just hate your son. You know, but you're okay. Don't tell me that. If you hate my son, I don't like you either. And so don't do that. And this is just a pitiful, pitiful situation. So where are we at? We're now at the situation where the man knows tomorrow I die. And I think if it had only been tomorrow I die, he might have even handled that better. But it's not just tomorrow I die, it's tomorrow my sons will fall with me. And I will fall not right with God. I will not fall in the midst of my days of walking with God. I'm going to fall at the end where I fought God, not listened. And my kids are going to pay a price. And my seed is going to be extinguished. And Israel will fall, and all that that means. And there'll be wailing in homes tomorrow night because of me. And he carries that weight. Now, the next, go across to chapter 29. Again, verse 1 and 2, the Philistines gather. Go across to chapter number 31. Chapter number 31 is where we get our last thing of what happened. Chapter number 31, verse 1. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons. And you can read it, and you can go down, and exactly what was said took place. Names, the sons were killed, the whole, exactly what was said. Now, you say, Brother Sehmish, you said in this message there's something that you admire about Saul in this. What is it? Here it is, and here's the message. Here's what I admire. I admire the fact that when he had come to an end by his own doing, he was at Endor. He knew tomorrow you will die and your sons. You know what he did? He didn't run away. He didn't say, let's all flee for our life. Let's find a way. The few of us that are here, let's get out while we can. It wouldn't have worked anyway, but he didn't do that. He didn't run away. He didn't do that. If you read the end of that, he got his men together. They all left together. I can only imagine what that was going on. Yep. He went back. You know what he did? He woke up in the morning. He got up. He knew what was coming that day. He gets up. He puts on his armor. And he goes out there to face what needed to be faced. And that's what I admire. That willingness to face the hard thing. That willingness to wake up and know that today is going to be a bad day. Today I have to deal with some things that is going to be very, very difficult. Today I will have to deal with something I have not had to deal with before. Yet I will arise, I will get up, and I will go. And I admire that. And if there were more Christians who took that spirit, you know what we have? We have people who wake up and realize, I have difficult things to do today. I'm going to roll over and pull the pillow back over my head. That is not right. That is not God, and you ought to have more character than that. Get up. Yep. Get up. Say, well, it's a hard day, and this, and I, by the way, I am not minimizing the hardness of the things that we will all have to face in life. You will bury your sweetheart one day. You will have events in life that will shake you to your core. You will have things happen to you, and some of it you will know, today I have to do this. As a leader, you will have to confront some things that inside you will just be your stomach in knots, your strength just completely gone from you. Just completely empty, nothing left. Get up. Get up. Get out of bed. Make your bed. and go and face the day. Go and do it. Face the hard thing. Face the thing that God has put in front of you. Face the difficult thing. Don't run away. Don't back off. Don't turn around and flee. Don't leave it to someone else to take care of. Don't say, I can't do it. Don't lay on the floor. Get up. Face the hard thing. Go out there and deal with what you have to deal with. And by the grace of God, that's exactly what you can do. And you need to do. And I admire him greatly for doing that. That willingness to just to get up, put on his armor, get out there and go and be the leader, even though he knew what would take place that day. I admire that. I admire that. I see a picture of the man not sleeping all night, tossing and turning. I see a picture as his sons come to the tent door. We ready, Dad? We ready? We're ready, son. We love you, Dad. I love you too, son. We'll be okay, Dad. We're going to be okay. This will be okay. It'll be okay, son. But he knows. The officers come, we're ready to go. Okay. We're going to do this today, Chief. Okay, good. Okay, fellas, let's go. There's a lot of them, but we're good. We're with you, Dad. We're going to be right beside you the whole way. Okay, son. You know, Dad, as I left, my wife was worried. She kissed me. She said she worried I'm not going to come. I told her, Dad, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. I hugged the kids this morning and I told them it'll be okay. But he went out. He went out. And that's what I admire. We need to get some of that. We need to get some of that grit. We need to get some of that manliness. We need to get some of that spirit. We need to get some of that willingness to face the hard thing. It's going to be hard. Today's going to be a hard day. You know, some of those times you'll say today's going to be a hard day and God might deliver you from it, but you're going to have the hard day where there is no deliverance. God's still God.
Right.
God will be with you. You're not this,
Right.
but you have to face it. You have to go out there. You have to do it. I have great admiration for the people like this. I greatly admire my wife. See your wife. I greatly admire my wife. So why? Because she bears things I can't even tell you about. But you wouldn't know that. Because she wakes up in the morning and has to face hard things.
Right.
But you wouldn't know that. But she gets up. She usually gets up first. She gets up. She makes her bed. We go. She doesn't complain. So what is that? It's a little bit of that spirit.
Amen.
It was the spirit that used to be in people everywhere that's becoming so hard to find. It was the spirit that built this nation. And it's the fact that that spirit's not there is why this nation's crumbling. It's that spirit. And if it's in anyone, it ought to be in Christians. I'm thinking tonight about a lady who I know who's married to a missionary who's just never home. See what I mean? He's never home. He's never home. You say sort of they go, you mean he's out for the day and he comes back? No, he's out for months. He's out for months. And she's alone. And no one even knows her name. No one even knows about it. She's just clothed in dignity and grace and Christian character. I've never heard her complain. I've never heard her ever say anything but good things about her husband. He's never there. And when he gets back after a few months, he stays for 4 days and goes again. She lives that way. You know, it's within the power of that woman to destroy that man's ministry anytime. Anytime. If she just got up and said, I've had enough, and walked out, probably a dozen people would say, well, we sure understand that. but every morning, she gets up and her husband is not there. And her children are not there. And alone. Mrs., and I will not say her name, faces the hard thing. I saw her a little while ago. I said, how are you doing? First thing she did was brag on her husband. I said, oh, I'm so glad that's going well. I said, how are you? She said, well, I'm okay. Well, you know, I got this cancer. I said, what? She said, I got this cancer. I said, you got a cancer? I don't tell anyone. So, are you okay? She said, I have to go to chemotherapy. I go every day. I said, who takes you to chemo? Who does that? I said, go alone. You go alone? Every day. She gets up. She's got cancer. She gets up. So where's he? He's not there. He's not even in the country. And she goes and does that. You say that's not right. I'm just telling you that woman has a spirit. There's something in her a little bit akin to this. Get up. Face the thing you need to face. Face it. Get some grit. Get some tenacity. Get some determination. Get some resolve. And do it. And face the difficult thing. It probably won't be anything like that. But do it. Oh, I say, Brother Sehmish, you don't understand my husband and my situation. And you're right, I don't understand. But dear lady, get up. Go on. Live for God. Face the hard thing. You don't have to tell everyone. God sees it. Do it. Do it. Face it. I was in the country I'm in only for a few years. I had helped some people who were involved in organized crime. And I won't tell you because nothing remains, everything's global now. I'll be careful what I say. But I helped some people and a word came back to me. The other people are not happy about that. They got a hit out on you. Now I'm in a foreign country. They're gonna take you out. I asked them questions, determined as best I could the seriousness of that. They said it's. I said, what will they do? They said they'll do what they always do. They'll come on motorcycles. They'll have their heads covered, and they'll just come up to you, and they'll shoot you, and they'll go. And they said, you need to be careful. In fact, you might be better to go home. I'd been shot at in New Guinea. They missed. But I'd been shot at there, and they shot in the car. But that was just, they didn't know I was in the car when they were doing that. But this time it was me. I began to think about that. You know, when you're dealing with something like that, you sort of look at your kids a bit differently. You look at your wife. You think about your home. You start saying, what is this? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? And I rang my pastor. I said, Pastor, look, this and this and this has happened. And he was very sober on the phone. I called him back. I said, this and this and this happened. I said, Pastor, I'm just saying, if anything were to happen to me, could you please do this? For my family, would you please do this? This will need to happen. Would you please do this? And I just gave him some instructions. And he said, do you think you should come home? I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I am not going to run away from the hard thing. I'm not going to do it. And I made a decision. I thought, I prayed. I finally decided, you know what? If they come, they're not going to shoot me as I'm running off into the distance. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to stand in this country and say, I believe in God who made the world and made it all and has all power, and then run and then run like a scared animal. I am not going to do it. And I determined, I said, Joe, I said, if they come, I'm going to walk. They won't need to come to me. I will go to them. And I said, I'm going to go out there and say, you do what you want. You say, well, that's just crazy. I'm not going to run away. Face the hard thing. Face the difficult thing. Get up. Get up. Stop. Well, it's hard. It's hard for many of us. You just don't know all the hard stories. Get up and face it. Go out there. Dear lady, bear it. Carry the load. It's not fair. It's probably not. It's probably not. Face what you need to face. That's the kind of Christianity we need to see today. Amen. And that's what I want to leave you with tonight. We'll go our separate ways tonight. You go face your hard thing and I'll go face mine. And God will give us the glory. Let's bow for a word of prayer. Pastor, I'm going to have you come and close as you would see fit.
Mrs. Knowles, why don't you just play? The altar's open tonight.